What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for your Overwatch. Finally home, able to speak into an actual mic again. Feels great. We've got a big news roundup for you. New patch brings in the new Paris map, as well as a major change to how Brigitte's armor works. This is the new change. Non-recoverable health, shields, and armor are now consumed before recoverable health, shields, and armor. So I think just reading a long list of words like this can look a little confusing, but notice on the new priority order on the bottom, it goes non-recoverable shields, non-recoverable armor, non-recoverable health, all before shields. So that means your Lucio sound barriers, Doomfist passive that gives him shields, Brigitte's armor pack, and rally all will go on top of your health, which is important because it used to be where Zarya or Zenyatta, who have natural recovering shields, when they got any armor from Brigitte, would have a portion of health that could self-regen to protect it. Now this is less significant than it used to be because in the last patch, Brigitte's rally armor faded away after 30 seconds, but that's still plenty of time for it to be active. And so this is another case where rally is getting taken down a notch. You might think to yourself, well, does this have any impact on GOATs or the meta in general? I'll say this is important because in fights where rally is active and being used, both Zen and Zarya typically could overstep their bounds a little bit, go down a little low, then duck back and be able to regen their health, while keeping the armor hidden underneath for the next time they take damage. Now that'll no longer be the case, so in the next few seconds, when maybe you get a chance to damage them again, they won't have this extra bit of health underneath, because 30 seconds of rally armor doesn't sound like a lot, but it does maintain over the course of a full fight or so, so being unable to protect it for that second or perhaps even third time you poke your head outside of the Rhine shield to take some damage, which we've seen go to the Overwatch League, these fights take forever. I think that it is significant, but not necessarily big enough to be shaking up the entire meta. I think we're going to need a new hero for that. Come on, Jeff Kaplan, let's whip up another one. You said Brigitte was going to be meta changing. I'm hoping this next one flips things on its head yet again, but we'll have to see. And of course, coming with this patch was the new Paris map, which looks great, until maybe you find out it's a 2CP map, meaning that, are we going to see more 2CP in ranked? Oh gosh, please no. I have to agree with my friend Cliff on this one. At this point, I want to see so few maps, I'd rather a map veto system be added before I see another map, especially not a 2CP one, okay, Jeff? You're killing me over here. Less is more. If we could queue for the exact maps we want, or at least limit the pool somewhat, you'd have a lot more confidence that you're going to have some fun getting into the game when you hit queue. Can systems like that be abused? Of course. But I think we should focus on having fun before we worry about making everything fair all the time. Don't get me into a rant. We got more news to cover. Big Daddy Jeff Kaplan did go on the forums again after we covered him last to talk about the Apex ping system, which we, and of course many other people, wish got adapted a bit into Overwatch. This is what he says. Respawn did such a good job with the ping system in Apex Legends. It works really well. Back in the early development of Overwatch, we actually had a very similar ping system. Ours was inspired from MOBAs like League of Legends and Heroes of the Storm. We eventually removed it because it had a few issues. With 6 people on the team, it got very spammy if more than a few people were using it. And the geography of Overwatch maps as well were a problem because the engagement distances are fairly constrained. This made pinging upwards challenging and often frustrating. An example is standing at the gate of point A of Temple of Anubis and trying to ping to the upper ledge above the gate entering point B. Our engagement distances tend to be in the 10 to 30 meter range. In Apex, you have very long engagement distances and very big maps. It makes it easier to ping below you. It would be fun to revisit the system and see if we could make something like that workable. We do have some designs for improvement and customization to the communication wheel that we're trying to get in, but we're always appreciative of feedback and suggestions. So again, always happy to see Jeff Kaplan post onto the forums, but similar to how I felt in our previous video on his other post, I kind of think we've got bigger fish to fry, and in fact, I almost feel like taking back what I said about the ping system from Apex. Look, that's not the most important thing, okay? Don't put development resources in that. Moving on to some Overwatch League news, if you got a chance to watch the opening week of Season 2, it was pretty hype, actually. Really high stream numbers as well. It seems like the community knows that the Overwatch League is legit and shows up to watch it, even if the matches are a bit of a goats fest. I, of course, was there last week in person. It seems like OWL itself made a lot of improvements to the pacing of the broadcast, but probably the biggest blemish on the whole thing is just the strength of the 3-3 comp. And although it is just week 1, it seems like there's quite a bit of parity in the league. Main tank for the San Francisco Shock Super says this: Shock beats Dallas, Dallas beats Seoul, Seoul beats Gladiators, Gladiators beats Shock. 50-50, hard enforced, nothing to see here. French pro player wins responds with this. Meta is the biggest factor. It's not a mechanically demanding one, and that brought teams closer. The disparity in skill level will reappear as soon as the meta shifts away from GOATs. Koreans will dominate again, most likely. And right here at the tail end of the video, I thought I would give some first impressions of what's going on in the league from week 1. First up, I think Boston, indeed, were underrated yet again. It might just be Fusions coming in on the main tank, being a GOAT's master, making them look so competitive, as it seems like the knowledge gap is the biggest determining factor in the Overwatch League in the first week. But on the other end of things, a team like the San Francisco Shock, a lot of the analysts were putting them way ahead of everybody else. But, I think they started to see some of those personnel problems up against the Gladiators, where you have all of this talent, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna dominate the entire league, especially right now where I think main tanks and supports do most of the heavy lifting anyway. A lot of attention being put on Zarya's and how much they're pumping out, but I think that's almost more of a byproduct of what your supports do for you in the repositioning game of the Rhine, but also in the timing of support ults, which if your team survives longer than their team, you pretty much win. And to that point, as the week went on, it seemed like we saw more and more GOATs, which is scary because as I said before it started, we were going to see 50 to 90% GOATs. And depending on the day, I think that prediction was very accurate, where sometimes an entire series was pure GOATs. And I gotta say, a lot of times, the counter GOATs compositions don't look very good. There's a chance that they hardcore counter it, but a lot of times it looks to be a waste of time, which is going to be scary for those of us who want to see a bit of variety here in Stage 1. But you gotta remember, last year, we had instant res on Mercy, which was a key determining factor in Stage 1. That started to get changed and reined in as the stages went on, and by the time we hit Stage 3, we had a sick meta. I'm just hoping it doesn't take that long for the Blizzard devs to figure this one out. They could just add hero bans to the Pro League and all of this would be solved. You would force diversity onto the league. From game to game, you could sculpt what heroes you got to play, but instead of having selected hero bans, we have meta-enforced bans, which essentially means if you don't have 3 supports with the best support ults in the game, all the shields in the world, and a tank comp, well, prepare to lose the objective and probably the game. It's always been the case that the meta bans out diversity by itself. If you want actual hero diversity, you need quote-unquote arbitrary limitations put in place in order to force it to happen. Because short of that, I think we're in a balancing nightmare where it's really hard to not make one comp way too strong, and we should just thank our lucky stars that there's multiple versions of the GOATs comp that gets played, which essentially is the only hero diversity we get, even if it isn't the playstyle diversity we wish we would see. But time will tell, maybe teams will lean into anti-GOATs more as the stage goes on, but I don't think so. It's going to be about the same as we saw in week 1, which I think we might explain a bit in upcoming videos, but it's mostly down to the problem of counter-picking, screwing up your ult economy, and the GOATs characters have the best ultimates in the game, making it doubly difficult to not pick them a lot of the time, and even more punishing when you don't invest playtime in building towards those ultimates. But that's going to be everything for today's video. If you're happy that we're finally back, please leave the video a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news updates and give my predictions on the Overwatch League matches thus far. Not looking so hot, sitting at 8-8, but hey, there was a ton of upsets. I predicted some of them, didn't see some of the others coming. Let's see how that unfolds as time goes on. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.